Without a Hero by T. Carragus and Boyle. This book is read by Jonathan Reese. All that remained to hope was that on the day of my execution there should be a huge crowd of spectators, and that they should greet me with howls of execration. Albert Camus, The Stranger. To her horror, Dotty found herself having second thoughts. What if she had lost her virginity to a man who scared her, and who sounded, from his own description, like a pretty bad hat? Mary McCarthy, The Group. Big Game. The way to hunt is for as long as you live, against as long as there is such and such an animal. Ernest Hemingway, Green Hills of Africa. You could shoot anything you wanted for a price, even the elephant, but Bernard tended to discourage the practice. It made an awful mess for one thing, and when all was said and done, it was the big animals, the elephant, the rhino, the water buff, and giraffe, that gave the place its credibility, not to mention ambiance. They weren't exactly easy to come by, either. He still regretted the time he'd let the kid from the heavy metal band pot one of the giraffes, even though he'd taken a cool $12,000 to the bank on that one. And then there was the idiot from MGM, who opened up on a herd of zebra and managed to decapitate 2 ostriches and lame the Abyssinian ass in the process. Well, it came with the territory, he supposed, and it wasn't as if he didn't carry enough insurance on the big stuff to buy out half the L.A. Zoo if he had to. He was just lucky nobody had shot himself in the foot yet, or the head. Of course, he was insured for that, too. Bernard Puff pushed himself up from the big mahogany table and flung the dregs of his coffee down the drain. He wasn't exactly overwrought, but he was edgy, his stomach sour and clenched round the impermeable lump of his breakfast cruller, his hands afflicted with the little starts and tremors of the coffee shakes. He lit a cigarette to calm himself and gazed out the kitchen window on the dromedary pen, where one of the moth-eaten Arabians was methodically peeling the bark from an elm tree. He looked at the thing in amazement, as if he'd never seen it before, the flexible lip and stupid eyes, the dully working jaw, and made a mental note to offer a special on camels. The cigarette tasted like tin, like death. Somewhere a catbird began to call out in its harsh, mewling tones. The new people were due any minute now, and the prospect of new people always set him off. There were just too many things that could go wrong. Half of them didn't know one end of a rifle from the other. They expected brunch at noon and a massage an hour later, and they bitched about everything, from the heat to the flies to the roaring of the lions at night. Worse, they didn't seem to know what to make of him, the men regarding him as a subspecies of the blue-collar buddy, regaling him with a non-stop barrage of licorice grins, dirty jokes, and fractured grammar, and the women treating him like a cross between a maître d' and a water-carrier. Dudes and greenhorns, all of them, parvenus, money-grubbers, the kind of people who wouldn't know class if it bit them. Savagely snubbing out the cigarette in the depths of the coffee mug, Bernard wheeled round on the balls of his feet and plunged through the swinging doors and out into the high, dark hallway that gave onto the foyer. It was stifling already, the overhead fans chopping uselessly at the dead air round his ears, and the sweat prickling at his new-shaven jowls as he stomped down the hall. A big man in desert boots and khaki shorts, with too much belly and something over-eager and graceless in his stride. There was no one in the foyer and no one at the registration desk. Espinosa was out feeding the animals. Bernard could hear the hyenas whooping in the distance, and the new girl, what was her name, hadn't made it to work on time yet, not once. The place seemed deserted, though he knew Orbelina would be making up the beds and Roland sneaking a drink somewhere, probably out behind the lion cages. For a long moment Bernard stood there in the foyer, framed against a bristling backdrop of kudu and oryx heads, as he checked the reservation card for the 10th time that morning. Mike and Nicole Bender, Bender Realty, 15125 Ventura Boulevard, Encino, California. Real estate people. Jesus. He'd always preferred the movie crowd, or even the rock and rollers with their spiked wristbands and poof hairdos. At least they were willing to buy into the illusion that Puff's African game ranch, situated on 2,500 acres just outside Bakersfield, was the real thing. The Great Rift Valley, the Ngorongoro Crater, the Serengeti. But the real estate people saw every crack in the plaster. And all they wanted to know was how much he'd paid for the place, and was the land subdividable. He looked up into the yellow-toothed grin of the sable mounted on the wall behind him. The sable his father had taken in British East Africa back in the 30s, and let out a sigh. Business was business, and in the long run it didn't matter a whit who perforated his lions and gazelles, just as long as they paid. And they always paid, up front and in full. Bernard saw to that. What was it, Nick? 6 months ago when we went to Gino Parducci's for dinner? It was 6 months, wasn't it? And didn't I say we'd do the African thing in 6 months? Didn't I? Nicole Bender was curled up in the passenger seat of the white Jaguar XJS her husband had given her for Valentine's Day. A pile of knitting magazines lay scattered in her lap, atop a set of bamboo needles trailing an embryonic garment in a shade so pale it defied categorization. She was 27, blonde, a former actress, model, poet, singer, whose trainer had told her just 2 days earlier that she had perhaps the most perfectly sculpted physique of any woman he'd ever worked with. Of course, he was paid to say things like that, but in her heart she suspected they were true, and she needed to hear them. She turned to her husband. "Yes," she said, "you did. But I pictured us in Kenya or Tanzania, to tell the truth." Yeah, he fired back impatiently. Yeah. The words coming so fast they might have been bullets squeezed from one of the glistening new big-bore rifles in the trunk. "But you know I can't take 6 weeks off from work. Not now when the new Beverly Hills office is about to open up, and the Monte Moretto deal is all but in the bag. And besides, it's dangerous over there, what with the next revolution or war or whatever coming down every 6 minutes, and who do you think they're going to blame when the roof caves in? White people, right? And where do you think you'll want to be then?" Mike Bender was a barely contained factory of energy, a steamroller of a man who had risen from receptionist to king and despot of his own real estate empire in the space of 12 short years. He was given to speechifying, the precious words dropping from his lips like coins from a slot machine, his fingertips alighting on his tongue, his hair, his ears, the crotch of his pants, and his elbows as he spoke, writhing with the nervous energy that had made him rich. "And plus you've got your tsetse flies and black mambas and beriberi and the plague and God knows what all over there. I mean, picture Mexico, only 100 times worse. No, listen, trust me. Gino swore this place is as close as it gets to the real thing, only without the hassles." He lowered his sunglasses to give her a look. "You're telling me you really want to get your ass chewed off in some lopsided tent in... He couldn't seem to think of a place sufficiently grim, so he improvised. "Zambezi land?" Nicole shrugged, giving him a glimpse of the pouty little half-smile she used to work up for the photographers when she was 19 and doing the summer-wear ads for J.C. Penney. "You'll get your zebra-skin rug yet. You wait and see," Mike assured her. "And a couple of lions' heads and gazelles or whatever for the wall in the den, okay?" The Jaguar shot across the desert like a beam of light. Nicole lifted the knitting needles from her lap, thought better of it, and set them down again. "Okay," she said in a breathy little whisper, "but I just hope this place isn't too, tacky." A sudden harsh laugh erupted from the back seat, where Mike Bender's 12-year-old daughter, Jasmine Honeysuckle Rose Bender, was stretched out supine with the last 10 issues of Bop and a 6-pack of New York seltzer. "Get real, will you? I mean like shooting lions in Bakersfield? Tacky city. Tacky, tacky, tacky." Up.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?